Welcome back to Dunstan Kiwi Bred. Waikato Stud's highly successful stallion roster includes a former Cox Plate hero who looks set to continue the legacy of his champion sire, Zabeel. We caught up with Waikato Stud's Mark Chittick to check in on the progress of Zabeel. Marky was a high-class racehorse with a big price tag when he was retired to stud. Have Zabeel's results vindicated the decision to purchase him for Waikato Stud?
Oh yes, yeah, for sure. I mean, certainly with the last couple of seasons that he's had. But he was an interesting horse at the time because, as you say, high-class racehorse, won the Cox Plate and won it extremely well. And with his pedigree, I think that's why the price tag was where it was at. And of course, after the first year or two at stud, he went through a couple of things. Obviously the world meltdown, which didn't help, and people were waiting for his 2-year-olds to get out and going, and it really took until they were 3 to really sort of get going. So, I take my hat off to him and his results and where he stands right now, because he has gone through a couple of periods there that haven't been easy for him, so for him to come out the other side, prove his purchase price, and for us getting him here at Waikato Stud for New Zealand, it's just fantastic, really.
Zabeel looked promising early on in his stallion career, producing 3 classic winners in Brambles, Scarlet Lady and Sangster, 2 of them going on to further Group 1 success as older horses. That must be pleasing to see that longevity with his offspring at the track.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And obviously, being by Zabeel, you'd expect them to run over a bit more distance and get better as they got older, or as they get older. But 32 stakes winners at this early stage of his career is fantastic. But I think probably the point that we make is, yes, he's leaving the classic winners and those Group 1 classic winning distances. But of those 32 stakes winners, he's left 5 stakes winners as 2-year-olds. Which just shows, his versatility, from 2-year-olds through the classic winners and Group 1 winners over longer distances.
He's produced another 2 Group 1 winners this past season with Lucia Valentina and Costume. Which of those performances stood out for you?
Oh, Costume, because we owned it. But no, certainly they were both very, very consistent mares. Costume running second in the Group 1 at Wellington, and then coming back and winning the Group 1 here at Waikato. So that was fantastic, and a fantastic result for us. We were just chuffed to win with her. But Lucia Valentina, she performed here in New Zealand, and then went over and performed consistently, and winning the Vinery in Sydney. There it was a fantastic result. So it's hard to take anything away from both, and they both did extremely well.
He finished well in the Stallion Awards again this season in the top 4, proving his offspring continue to win races. What's he stamping with that make them so successful?
Well, I think you get a good type. You get a good type by him. He consistently leaves good types. But he, he's a horse that that we're lucky that he's passed on his ability. I mean, when he won the Cox Plate, when he won the Spring Champion Stakes, he was dominant in doing so, and that's why we acquire these sorts of stallions. And he's passing on that ability to run, and he's passing on a lot of his facets that attracted us to him. So he's doing a wonderful job, and as you say, he's had a great season. He's left 113 individual winners in this last season, and 12 individual stakes winners, which are great results, and 2 Group 1 winners. But of those 113 winners, 60 of them are in Australia, 6 of them are in Hong Kong, 40 of them in New Zealand. So he's spreading them out throughout the countries and doing a wonderful job in doing so.
We talk about his soundness and durability, but it's Zabeel's temperament that sets him apart, isn't it? Is that translating into his offspring?
Oh yeah, you did right there. He certainly he has a wonderful temperament, and all of the stock that we've had anything to do with. And I think when we talk about them winning in all these different countries, New Zealand, Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, that they are horses that can travel and race in different environments. So their temperament is a key to a lot of that.
Mark, a record-breaking year for Waikato Stud at the yearling sales. How pleasing was it to see the results of the Savabeel yearlings through the ring, in particular the Splashing Out colt?
Very satisfying. I think the Splashing Out colt in particular was a lovely horse, and David Ellis and Te Akau buying him was a great result for us. But probably the underlying strength that we really felt was the support that we had from the Australian racing industry, the Australian trainers, the Australian buyers that recognised that he's a serious horse and they're serious progeny, and the results that he's getting throughout all of these countries. So no, it was a great result right through. And as I say, he consistently leaves good horses, and you produce them at Karaka or wherever there, and they stand out, and he's achieving the results.
Are we seeing any patterns in the way he's crossing with our New Zealand mares?
That's a very good question there. I mean, obviously he's getting great results with O'Reilly and Pinn's mares, but then again, both those sires as broodmare sires are doing a great result, and he's going to be getting more of them because he stands at Waikato Stud. But there's a selection of broodmare sires that he's crossing with, so he seems to be generally just doing a good job.
A slight increase to his service fee this year from 55 to 60,000. Why the rise?
It was really just it's easier to say, and it just although we kicked off with a full book with O'Reilly, it sort of pitches him at the same sort of price, and really we couldn't really sort of separate the two of them, so it just keeps it nice and neat.
In New Zealand, we talk about the Sir Tristram's of Beale factor. In your opinion, Mark, do you feel Savabeel's on his way to continuing the legacy of his sire and grandsire?
Well, one very interesting point is at the same stage of his career, they're the only two horses that have left more stakes winners than him at this stage, and have the same or better stats than him at this stage. So you'd have to say that he's sort of walking down that track, which but as we always say, very, very big boots to fill. They were both two freakish horses, and he's doing a fantastic job at this stage.
It's fantastic to see the career of Savabeel going from strength to strength at Waikato Stud. Well, it's now time for Kiwi Bred Abroad, and we're off to Australia with New Zealand Bloodstock's Richard Haynes.
Hello and welcome to Kiwi Bred Abroad, brought to you by the Singapore Tour Club, racing at Kranji every Friday and Sunday. Today we are touching base with a man who is well known to all New Zealand racegoers. His Sydney stable is rolling along nicely. Let's catch up with John Sargent. Well, John, we are catching up on a wet and wild Sydney morning in late winter. Are you feeling at home at all, being a Kiwi here in Sydney?
It's like being in New Zealand today, isn't it? Unbelievable. It always seems to happen here when the big carnivals come.
It is. Now, you've been in Sydney for a little while now. How have you settled into things?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's very vibrant here, and you've got to get off your backside and get out and get your owners and produce the goods. So that'll take another probably year to get the whole thing going, but it's going well. When
you made the call and the decision to come to Sydney, what was the main basis and factor behind the decision to come and train here?
Money was on one side of it, but it was more that a lot of my horses are owned up in Hong Kong and Asia, and they wanted them over here to race, and I was ending up losing a lot of horses, pre-training them there, and they were coming over here. So I thought, look, my children had just left school and gone to varsity. It was a good time to probably pull stumps and come over and give it a go here.
Has your training and training methods changed at all having to come here? Do you do things differently with the horses?
No, it's pretty similar to New Zealand. I think they probably do a bit more longer work than they do here. Here they sort of push them up the last 200 and that tops their work off. But probably I might change a bit when I get more Australian horses in the stables that are sprinters, and they'll do that type of work too.
I dare say if the right horse comes along, you'd love to head back across the Tasman with the right kind of horse and win a nice race?
For sure, yeah. I wouldn't mind to take a star back for the Auckland Cup or something, because you're just straight into Auckland, or maybe a 2-year-old in for the Diamond Stakes in Auckland, and even maybe Trenton, but for sure I'm looking at doing that as well.
Well, John, speaking of good horses, which you need, there aren't many better here at Randwick than Kiramosa. Great first up runner. Looks like she might be back on that.
Yeah, no, it was a great first up run. She just peaked the last 200, and she's come through it well. She galloped this morning, and she'll probably start either in the tramway in 2 weeks' time, or in just a restricted race at Rose Hill over 1,500 metres. Then we'll look at going to the George Main over a mile, then probably the Craven Plate, and then down to the Cox Plate.
Okay, you've trained some good ones. She's an Oaks winner herself. What makes her the star she is?
Yeah, it's probably, you can see a horse when they come in the stables. They've got the X factor. You know, even when they're half ready, like the other day, she still went very competitive race against the top sprinters in Australia. So they stand out pretty straight away, even if they're not good track workers on race day. They just produce it half ready.
How many horses are you working at the moment? What's a good number for John Sargent to be looking after?
Yeah, I've got about 30 in work at the moment. You know, I'd like to up that to sort of around the 50 mark to be competitive with the big stables here. But at this stage, it's good, and I'll just keep doing that until things improve.
And Sydney's home, you're not going anywhere for the moment?
No, staying here for quite a while at the moment.